inmendham video. Alright, so there should be video in the background, and it should have had audio of its own from a walk and talk, but it got messed up by the gimbal thing that keeps the camera steady. So way too much noise, so I have to do this video and put it on top of that video, I guess, so it wasn't a complete waste of time. But it's probably a waste of time just to salvage a semi-uninteresting video. Semi-interesting. Anyway, so the stuff I'm pointing to won't be relevant to this, I guess. Anyway, experiments. Failing sometimes. So anyway, what do I want to talk about? Yeah, it's even getting the video to keep the same quality when you impose, when you put editing it, and yeah, it's very complicated, mostly. Sometimes. I'm finding it to be. So anyway, it was a video, simple subject, right, of just the idea of whether to be or not to be, in a simple kind of, yes, there's such a thing as value in the universe, or no, there's no such thing. So Holiday keeps not really arguing, but just kind of emphatically stating, because the material universe may go all the way down, kind of thing, which I don't think the evidence indicates. I think it is quantizable, and that it's made out of a discrete bit, a quantum of something, whether it's a field perturbation or it's a little ball of sand. It doesn't really matter, a little hard thing. The bottom line is it interacts in a very unambiguous way, in the sense that it has properties that are really fundamentally, you can't get any simpler. It just moves the speed of light, it bangs into something, certain rules, and that's it. Really simple. But it doesn't matter. Whatever you think it is, that material thing, this idea of just a thing moving, somehow, that the fact that everything's made out of that means that anything that's a consequence of those things clumping into complexity means that none of their properties can be more meaningful, significant, real, than these fundamental properties. So, well, anyway, it's not, in my opinion, it's not an argument that has any logical foundation. It's no better than an argument from God or something, in the sense that it doesn't give you any reason, any logical reason, to negate the personal experience of, regardless of what I'm made out of, cells and electricity, and things very distant from what I am. I mean, the billions of cells I'm made out of are technically living things, and I'm made out of them. Not made out of them in the sense that they're not doing me in any sense, but the fact that they circulate and move oxygen around and do different things, but I'm not living with them. I'm living as a consequence of their movement, which is, I've made a comparison, but it's kind of like looking at a big city at night when they do all the traffic moving and stuff. You wouldn't think of that stuff as being a thing, but for us, that happening makes this happen. Consciousness. It creates a projector, a screen, and an idiot watching. And that's what our consciousness is doing, is watching our brain do us. And then it's watching the other us's doing them to us. The interaction. And it's watching it all. And in that watching process is filled with an atmospheric, you could call it, of more than just our senses, more than just sight, more than just sound. We feel, and we feel kind of dramatically different things, pleasant and unpleasant sensations. I think it can physically be argued that we really just feel unpleasant, and when you take away the unpleasant, that's feeling good. So you can reduce it one step, but the step of that idea of a qualitative state, the fact that there's a difference between the states, and the differences in how tall they are or how fat they are, but the difference is the quality of them. And one's clearly profit and one's loss. One's positive, one's negative. They're clearly different states. Torture and euphoria are very different states of consciousness. And they're clearly mechanically made. The physical bits create the state. It's not an illusion in the sense that it's not non-existent. It's an actual qualitative difference. It's a thing that's different. The brain does a different thing when it creates pain than it does when it creates pleasure, gratification, satisfaction, all of that crap. So yeah, this is a part in the video where I actually do point at something, I think. You know, and use rosebud as a flower looks like a rosebud, and so I use that as an analogy in the conversation. But I'm not going to remember exactly what that was for. You know, so there's no point in pointing it out. Anyway, probably not going to be able to finish well, anyway, don't get distracted. Alright, so there's no, the fact is that that's what brains do, is they create this mechanism that can make a sensation. And that's what it does. A sensation, and as I pointed out, a sensation isn't like anything else we know of in the universe. It's not like water or a brick or a rock or up or down. It's a completely different thing. And so, yeah, we don't have something to reference, to compare it to prove its legitimacy in some way, or to explain its function. We can only say it is. We feel it. We're experiencing it. And we have the advantage of being able to not only feel it, but to articulate and explain what nuances of it. Like, it could give feeling to some dumber animal, and it wouldn't be able to explain what it's feeling. It wouldn't be able to conceptually say good and bad, and it wouldn't be able to explain the depth of the goodness or the depth or the height of the reverse that. The depth of the badness and the height of the goodness and all of that. It wouldn't be able to add any context or weight or expand the explanation. And we can. We have that advantage. We also are intelligent and feeling. So we can intelligently talk about the sensations we feel. And clearly one of the most intelligent things you can say about feeling is that you know there's a dramatic difference between torture and euphoria. They're not the same thing in any way. They're very different. We can tell the difference as measuring devices for these qualitative states, as being capable of seeing it, not only in ourselves, but as we experience it, we certainly see that. We can also see it happening to somebody else and imagine the sensations and understand them to be comparable to the ones we have and all of that stuff, and label them appropriately. Tragedy happens to me, tragedy happens to other people. When torture happens, it's not really that complicated. And the real argument is there's nothing, there's no evidence, there's no reasoning. You know, he keeps arguing as if he's made a rational argument somehow that because the universe is mechanical, therefore mechanical wheels going round, round, round can't make feelings. when they have. It's just a fact. The material universe has made the feeling machine. It's a fact. And there's no reasoning that makes feelings go away because round wheels don't make feelings. Because we can't see the complex mechanical arrangement necessary to create a consciousness. Therefore, it doesn't exist. It's a silly argument. I mean, it's nonsensical. There's nothing you can do with that except say, well, that's nonsense. Okay, I mean, just because you can't see the mechanism doesn't mean it isn't working. I can look at a circuit board for a calculator, and yeah, it's a dumb calculator. It's not even a smart computer, and I can't see how it's calculating. That's my limitation. Doesn't mean the calculator doesn't calculate. It just means I don't understand how it's calculating. Now, how our biology makes sensation, we don't have to know how it does it. We know it does it. And that's all we need to know. And so anyway, once that exists, once you acknowledge the obvious, we're sampling it, we're tasting sensation, so to speak, what reasoning would I use to say it doesn't really exist? I'm not really detecting a difference between a positive sensation and a negative sensation. I'm not clearly detecting the difference between the brain in one state and the brain in another state. They're different states, and I'm able to detect the difference between those states, and I am able to explain how one is decidedly not good and the other is good. Or you could argue the same way, one is decidedly bad and the other is decidedly not bad. And there's no reasoning that undoes that. There's no logic that makes it possible to create some sort of argument that some whatever in the universe, at some intellectual level, you sit there and say, well, even though I've sampled these feelings of torture and euphoria, I can apply some logic that says it doesn't matter which one you turn the switch on, that they're equal, that they're indistinguishable. He hasn't provided any evidence that there's any rational argument that makes that sensible, that after I taste torture and euphoria, and then somebody asks me, well, you can have a zillion years of one of those two things, torture or euphoria, that somehow I would choose torture? It's not possible. It's silly. There's nothing I can add in all of my imagination. See, I mean, in your imagination, you can make up Cinderella stories. You can make up crap that can make the story work, where, oh yeah, she wears a glass slipper, and yeah, the good fairy thingy or whatever, the fairy godmother shows up and, makes her a coach and a nice dress, and, you can add something that's completely bullshit to fix a story. What can I add to torture and euphoria to make those two things equal? To make it irrelevant which one there's more of or something. There's nothing. I can't invent any fake thing to negate the power of the distinction I've sampled. I've sampled it. I've measured it. I've detected it. How can I deny that reality? Well, anyway, that's what he just keeps emphatically and redundantly and persistently and annoyingly stating, as if he's doing some sort of logic. Well, I'm asking you, where's the logic in it? I can't see any logic. And I'm quite sure if I put you to the test, you're going to concede you can tell the difference. And that if I gave you the choice of a trillion years of one of those two things, I'm damn sure you're not going to pick torture. I know it. So don't pretend to me that there's some reason you believe torture is negated by some logical principle. Because it's not. That there's some reasoning that makes it all go away. That it isn't really happening. That there really isn't a difference between somebody, having a nail in their eye and somebody eating a cupcake. That the events are indistinguishable qualitatively in any real sense. You don't have anything, to pin that on. There's no reasoning you can use to make it go away. So it is the quanta of value, is the sentient experience, the ouch. It's clearly the quanta of negative. And if we want to play the game and pretend there's this quantity of positive, it's the ah sensation, the relief, the obtaining of the satisfaction of the deprivated state. And that math is doable, reasonably. I would argue that the standard it has to be done from is realistically understanding that the negative state doesn't need to be created so you can create the illusion of your positive state in the first place. But yes, there's clearly something to be measured. There's clearly a difference between the dollar bill and the debt, an IOU and money. They're inverse in their relationship, and they're clearly distinguishable in terms of their consequence, their implication, their significance, their importance. I mean, you can just keep using all these words, and all these words only have meaning because something can be harmed, and harm is always related in some way to sentient experience. If you could argue that harm creates a positive net sensation universe, that is, more stuff is comfortable than uncomfortable because of something, then yes, it would be a good thing, because it's really just about what's experienced, what sensitive things are reading on their torture euphoria meter. Is it too far in the torture, or is it profiting up in the euphoria? And again, the profit of positive sensation is always tainted by the fact that most all of the positive sensations are derived through eliminating the negative. First, you stress the camel by putting the sticks on its back, and then you give it relief by pulling them off. So, that's the nature of it. So anyway, it looks like we're running towards the end of the time here. So I'll try to keep the audio the same size as the video anyway. So anyway, still testing, working this stuff out. Trying to find the best formula, but I want one that's, I wanted a point-and-shoot solution. It's just kind of irritating that, to get nice, smooth video, you end up with crappy audio. And that's a bummer. If they just put microphone jacks on all these little cameras, it would be so much better. But anyway, I'll work it out eventually. Probably, hopefully. And such. So until the next time.